All right, Class Act Sports back with you to talk some NFL football. Victor, what was the biggest reason that the Eagles lost that Tuesday night football game to the Minnesota Vikings?
Well, first of all, you got to give it to the Minnesota Vikings. They was playing like they was fighting for the first seed, and the game plan that they had coming into that game, blitzing Vic, sending Antoine outside. I mean, it was a master plan. He was able to get 2 sacks, calls a fumble for a touchdown. You really got to give it up to their defense. But I think the two crucial fumbles that Vic had really cost them the football game. I didn't think they was able to rebound from that. They had 6 sacks. They just I think Vic was a little flustered throughout the game. He didn't look himself, but you got to give credit to the Minnesota defense and what Leslie Frazier have done the last couple of weeks with that team.
Anytime Antoine Winfield came up great, it always seems like, a veteran corner like that, always making plays. But you put some pressure on Vic. If you're able to get him in the backfield, it's a win for the defense. If he's able to penetrate and get past that first line of defense, aka what happened versus the Giants in that fourth quarter, you saw what happened. But as far as what the Vikings do from here, where do you go right now? If you're the Vikings, do you bring back Leslie Frazier? Does this mean Joe Webb gets to become the starter next year? Teams go so up, so down very quickly. Where do the Vikings go as far as that goes?
Well, I think first of all you got to start in the front office. You got to get a head coach, whether it's Leslie Frazier or they go outside that organization. But you got to bring in a GM, and usually with the GM, they like to bring in their personnel people. So if they hire a new GM, Leslie Frazier may not get that job. And I think from there, they got to find who's they going to quarterback. Tavares Jackson's out for the year. He'll be back. Will he be the starter? Joe Webb in his first NFL start last night, coming in as a wide receiver, were able to, ignite that team to a win last night. Do you give him an opportunity to start next year? I think that may be in the game plan, but I think they got a lot of questions to answer as to what is the first on their agenda going into next year. But first and foremost, they definitely have to get a head coach to run that football team. I think it'll trickle down from there.
But they like Leslie Frazier. A lot of this, it's all about will the team play hard for the coach. And that's why I think Coughlin's got to go in New York. I don't see the team giving it their all for him. And if they like the coach, they may not have to like him. They got to respect him. But I just think it's a win-win when the players actually love the head coach. Switching gears a bit, let's talk about how that plays out. The Eagles losing last night kind of changes things up a bit because the Bears lock up the 2 seed, and now the Giants are relying on a Bears victory. The Bears don't really have too much to play for. They already got their 2 seed, but then on the other hand, they could knock out their rivals, the Green Bay Packers, and prevent a formidable team like the Packers from making the playoffs. So on the other hand, the Bears do have something to play for. What's your take on that?
Well, I think first and foremost, they got that 2 seed locked up as you mentioned, and I think again, being injury free going into that first playoff game is the mindset of the Chicago Bears, not so much beating the Green Bay Packers. I know from a Giants fan you will love to see that happen. I think that they're going to go into this game. They may play their starters a little bit, or they may not. But I know how Belichick, he plays. You look at when they was undefeated going in their throughout the season, they played Tom Brady to the end of the game. So I don't think Lovie Smith going to do that with Jay Cutler and other guys. That they may get injured. So look for those guys to rest. Look for Green Bay to take that game.
But
And
Vic, here's the thing, man. I don't know. I just think you're playing with house money because if you're the Chicago Bears and you leave it all out there on the field, you lose, it's like, okay, so what? We put our best foot forward. So what? We got a number 2 anyway. Barring injuries aside, you're not going to have a first round game, so you need to keep your players fresh, and that's why I think all the players should play, and someone like Jay Cutler should knock out Aaron Rodgers and the formidable Green Bay Packers, a Super Bowl contender. You have a chance to knock them out, keep them out of the playoffs. And I think it's a no-brainer for the Chicago Bears to go out into this game and give it their all. Because like I said, even if they do come out on the losing side of things, it's like, okay, we still got the 2 seed anyway.
Well, of course. I mean, obviously they will have time to rest, but they don't want to go into that game forbidden injuries happen. And you look at Tom Brady back in '08 when he first played, he's out for the year. They don't want that to happen to Jay Cutler going into the playoff game. So they may start the game. They may even play the first half, but look for that after that first half, depending on whatever the score is, up or down, they're going to pull their starters out of the game, and they're going to let their other guys play, get some playoff experience. So if they got to play down the stretch, they know what to expect in a big game such as the Green Bay Packer game. Because there's going to be a playoff atmosphere in Green Bay, believe that.
Well, you got a team like the Falcons, probably going to get that 1 seed. You got a team like the Bears, most likely going to get that 2 seed. That leaves contenders, such as the Eagles, aside from those who really don't like their performance versus the Vikings last night. But you got the Eagles, the Saints, the Packers, potentially a team like the Giants that could backdoor in, and obviously the NFC West champ, which could be the Rams or the Seahawks. Teams like that, the Saints, is it possible for a road team to run the table in this in this NFC playoffs?
Absolutely. I think once you get past the Rams-Seattle game, because I think they'll be one and done, any of those teams that you mentioned has an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. Philadelphia has a good team. Giants already won the Super Bowl. The Saints won the Super Bowl. Atlanta have been to the Super Bowl, but they all have an opportunity to win the Super Bowl and make it to the Super Bowl. So once that first round is over, it's whatever team is playing better at that point. So everybody better strap it up, be ready to play every single week, because as you know, once the playoff hit, you've seen it with the Arizona Cardinals back a couple of years ago when they made it to the Super Bowl, just barely skating into the playoffs.
Right.
Because they make it to the Super Bowl. So you can't discount any teams once you make it to the big show.
Well, you talked about a couple teams that have had some playoff and Super Bowl experience. But, let's talk about the Rams a bit. Sam Bradford, huge game versus Pete Carroll's Seattle Seahawks. Both teams and both coaches with Pete Carroll and Steve Spagnuolo done a great job with those teams. People are so quick to knock that division. I understand, it's tough to fathom a 7-9 team, 8-8 team going into the playoffs. But you got to be able to look at things from the big perspective. Overall, Sam Bradford, rookie quarterback, turning that franchise around. You saw Matt Ryan do that in Atlanta, and how much better off that team is a year or two from that rookie run. Now you have a team like the Rams, Sam Bradford. What if he had a number 1 wide receiver? Go out and give him a guy like a Brandon Marshall and then see what a quarterback like Sam Bradford could do. A rising young defense, really on the brink. And I think a team like the Rams could even give a team like the Saints a run for their money if they play lights out and Bradford does Bradford.
Well, I don't think, you're right. The two coaches, and Pete Carroll and Spagnuolo have done a phenomenal job with these two teams. I just don't think they have enough firepower to beat a team like the Saints or any other team in the division. Sam Bradford have had an unbelievable season for a rookie. I mean, coming in, should he go number 1? With the injuries he had, I think all the naysayers right now is a believer of Sam Bradford. I'm a believer of Sam Bradford at this point. Will he get in there and play well? I think so. But just as you mentioned, the wide receiver, Steven Jackson, been banged up. He got another Pro Bowl this year. But I just don't think they have enough offensively and have that dominant defense to get them past that first round mark. Will they play well? Will they be a contention? I think the playoff atmosphere in itself will get them guys ready to play. But will they have enough at the end of the day? I don't think so.
I understand. I mean, it is easy to say that, but I do understand where you're coming from as far as the X's and O's go. Just a quick point, guy like Sam Bradford, I said this when he came out, and I'll say it again. He reminds me a lot like an Eli Manning, a soft-spoken, quiet leader, has a leadership qualities that it's going to take for him to get the Rams over the hump. and take his team to that next level now that he has, won practically the NFC West. But as far as Bradford, he's 6'4", big body, big arm. He's accurate. Yeah, he's almost playing better than an Eli Manning right now. But I'm just talking about rookie seasons, big body, big arms, quiet leaders. I see some similarities with Bradford and Eli. But just switching gears, last thing I want to touch on quickly is the number one overall pick. You saw someone like Bradford turn the Rams around. Now you got Andrew Luck. If he comes out of Stanford, the first overall pick most likely is going to be Andrew Luck, the quarterback prospect. He's got the prototype size. He's got a great arm. And, you look at a team like the Panthers who has that number one pick. Do the Carolina Panthers switch gears, go away from Jimmy Clausen, Tony Pike, Matt Moore, and they draft an Andrew Luck, turn that franchise around? Or do you think they need so much that they continue to run with a Clausen and trade out of that number one spot if the price is right?
Absolutely. I think if Andrew Luck is on the board at that point, if he come out, they have to take Andrew Luck top of quarterback. He's a franchise player. He's been under Coach Harbaugh for the last few years now, so he understands that pro-style offense. You got to have a franchise quarterback. The quarterback that you mentioned, in Clausen, Moore, and the other quarterback there from Cincinnati, I just don't think those guys are ready to lead a football team. 2 and 3 years, I don't think the owner of the Carolina Panthers want to go through another season like this. They're going to draft the first that quarterback Luck. All right, they'll probably trade one or two of those other quarterbacks you mentioned, and they're going to add some pieces to the puzzle, and they'll be back ready to contend again next year. They have good pieces on defense. They have a great running game. They got to get that leader at quarterback. And I think they would do that with Andrew.
Well, a guy like a Clausen, he didn't go first round. So, you speak of his value. I don't know that they would get a lot for him. So maybe they would sit Clausen and, they did get him for cheap. So maybe he becomes a number 2. But it really doesn't work out in the grand scheme of things. I understand what you're saying. Andrew Luck, there's no doubt about it. He is a prototype NFL quarterback. He's like a Bradford. And you said when Bradford came out, Bradford's like a Ryan. When Matt Ryan came out, you said he's like an Eli. So you do need that franchise quarterback, but I just feel like Carolina needs so much. Why not consider trading down to a team like, something that comes to the top of a team like Cincinnati. It's time to go a different way if you're Cincinnati Bengals and Carson Palmer. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest here. I think a team like Cincy would want to consider getting a guy like Luck, building for the future. I know someone threw a team like the Bills around, but I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think the Bills like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Chan Gailey said it himself last year. They need an offensive line, and then they don't grab any linemen. So it's very interesting how things are going to play out. Who knows if Luck is even going to come out? I see no reason for him not to, considering his draft stock isn't going to get any higher, and he can get his degree anytime on the side.
No, I agree. But you got to take a Luck. At the end of the day, getting receivers, you're getting the defense. If you don't have a quarterback, still what do you have? You got to be in a position to have a leader behind center. And I think that Andrew Luck guy, and I think Moore, and have had some success, he may be the top guy that you have the opportunity to trade as a backup to another team that may seem favorable for them. But you got to take a guy like Andrew Luck. He's the guy for the future for them, and you can put pieces through free agency to add to the puzzle.
All right, thanks for the insight, Vic. Until next time, I'm Jared Ginsberg.
This is Victor Green.
And you're watching Class Act Sports.